Today is the day, I repeated in a whisper to myself. Today is definitely the day. It was almost routine, a tradition instilled within my week's events that I always anticipated. Although it was Wednesday, it was no ordinary Wednesday. It was Grocery Wednesday. Excited and ecstatic, wearing the most ridiculous grin plastered on my face, I was ready to embark on a journey through a multitude of aisles. Aisles of world cuisines, grains to no end, fun-sized candy, and cans of Campbell's enough to entice you to buy them for winter storage. This was my safe haven, my home away from home, and better yet, I had transportation. My miniature no adults allowed cart, perfectly compatible with my 3'8" height. I'm ready, I chanted to myself, as I lost myself within the haunting aroma of fresh fruit and produce. As I steadily pushed the cart forward, I was quite cautious for the obstacles ahead of me. Many people are unaware of the hazards within a supermarket. Cans of green peas stacked twice my height, cereal boxes of all the General Mills classics awaiting at the end of each aisle, and numerous bags of various chips and cookies screaming, "Buy me!" I scrounged through the filled shelves of my favorite aisles containing junk food galore, paradise as I referred to it as. I ensured my special trip to the deli, and luckily the butcher was magnanimous. He delicately sliced my usual black boar honey roasted ham, and even gave me 2 extra slices to savor as I continued my shopping adventure. I strolled through these familiar aisles and shared 2 second glances with familiar faces. I met eyes with Mrs. Garcia while my cart and I rummaged through the loaves of bread propped neatly on the shelves. Mrs. Garcia clutched tightly onto her grocery list, as if it would be a transgression to see it fall. I couldn't help but notice the entry labeled Wonder Bread, conveniently written in royal blue pen in bold letters at the top of her list. As she extended her arm for the loaf, I realized I was not in the proper position to reach the bread with its distinctive red and blue polka dots on its packaging. I asked Mrs. Garcia in my most polite voice, "Hi, Mrs. Garcia. Could you pretty please grab me a loaf of bread too?" She replied almost immediately with her fading Ecuadorian accent underlying her response, "Sure, sweetie." I thanked her graciously and walked away, just my groceries, my cart, and I. In that moment, I realized I was missing my most important treat, ice cream, of course. I made my way to the frozen food aisle. I locked my eyes on each frozen delight and stared in awe, with my mouth gaping wide and possibly even drooling. I saw the Ben & Jerry's section labeled with names I stumbled to pronounce, like a Dr. Seuss rhyme. Cherry Garcia, Half-Baked, Fish Food, Chunky Monkey, Sweet Cream and Cookies, Heath Bar Crunch, and Dublin Mudslide. Edie's and Haagen-Dazs captured my eyes with its tempting classic flavors, like the all-favorable chocolate and creamy vanilla. Of course, I managed to sweep every carton off the freezer shelf, without thought, doubt, or regret. I finally met my mother at the register, and she generously agreed to pay for all of the groceries in my trusty cart. As I loaded each one of my items from the mini carts to the conveyor belts, I realized my strong connection with the cart. It was a nifty container on wheels, holding all I could ever want at the time. As we began to depart from the register and the cashier's smile began to fade, I knew it was the killjoy of my shopping experience, the returning of my special cart. I knew I needed to cause a scene in order to keep my cart. It was the only way. I whined, screamed, and bawled my eyes out. With clenched fists and tears frantically pouring down my innocent face, I threw a tantrum and was caught up in a whirlwind of frustration and immense anger. My reaction was so strong. I could feel 1,000 glazed eyes staring at my wet, embarrassed, infuriated face. My mother happened to deceive me and released the cart from my formidable grip, and I knew my shopping experience had ceased. As the interminable weeks passed, I endured identical experiences during my shopping adventures, entering the supermarket with wide eyes and bright smiles, and leaving with tears of disappointment and aggravation. By the winter of 1998, I found myself with a faded smile and dim-lit eyes as I walked through the automatic doors and retrieved my cart from an employee dressed in her typical green work uniform. With an unenthusiastic expression, I sauntered sluggishly through the familiar aisles, transferred my groceries to the cashier's conveyor belt, and carried my purchases in the light plastic bags my mother would make me save after the groceries were put away. As it came time to return my miniature cart, I willingly detached from it and departed from my once-upon-a-time Cloud 9 known as Grand Union. In this moment, I felt my exodus from my childish mentality and the development of a new era, an era unknown to me. This era is maturity. I truly felt my transformation from youth to an age of more wisdom and sensibleness, physically and mentally. My actions were more controlled, and my speech was improving. I was accumulating more responsibility from parents, elders, and teachers, and their expectations of me augmented. My mentality had altered as my wants and desires for cookies and candy shifted to a yearning for books and even for time. I unknowingly entered a stage of metamorphosis and began my path of personal growth and development. Although I have unfastened myself from childhood, I must admit the supermarket smell and line of mini carts still infuses me with a sense of heightened fascination and exhilaration.